When I think of genetic technology, I think of things like paternity test and um, Ancestry.com, where you can find out about yourself by just giving them your DNA. And to me, that seems like a very regular piece of technology we have access to, but it's actually pretty revolutionary if you think about it in the long run of things, where we are currently at with genetic technology versus where we could be in the next 10 years. Um, so when I was researching this, I just found that the future seemed closer than I thought, and it comes down a lot to whose hands is this technology going to be in, and what does that mean for our future. And really, it comes down to the answer. The short answer to this was scientists have a lot of faith in humanity, which I personally don't. Because this could be like threatening technology, but it could also solve a lot of the world's problems. So it's kind of a toss up of taking the good with the bad. Um, so when I was watching the TED Talk that we were assigned for this class, that's what really got me started on this topic and got me interested, because he made it seem so scary. I mean, he gave us a kind of view of like, this is what our future looks like, this is where we're at, and we've just started here with this technology. But he also said, like, here's the downside to this technology, here are the problems that come with it. And so that got me really interested, thinking about, well, what else is coming that could be dangerous. And he talked a lot about how it could just genetic technology could be on things like our cell phone and just in public domain. And the objective of this TED Talk was, the revolution is already here. And I found that very true in the sources that I discovered. Jennifer Kahn also does a TED Talk about genetics, and she uses CRISPRs as an example of genetic technology, which is something I had never previously heard of. There was an example used of what a CRISPR was a mosquito population of white-eyed mosquitoes, I believe, and they were trying to get them to all be red-eyed mosquitoes, because those are the ones that didn't carry malaria. And that's genetically impossible to wipe out a species by breeding them with one that doesn't have, because when two things breed, the chances of that tree happening of all red-eyed mosquitoes from that female is almost, it's genetically impossible. So what a CRISPR did was it made it so that we could go against nature, basically, and create it so that we can pick that gene and force that trait to be carried on. Um, Now, this was with bugs, and Jennifer did explain how so far we can only really master it with like things that produce very fast, reproduce very fast. And so humans and animals that don't reproduce very fast are not really good for this, because it would take such a long time for it to take effect into a full population. But it happened quickly with the mosquitoes. And one take on this, on the positive side, is that the mosquitoes, it was good. You could get rid of mosquitoes carrying malaria. You could wipe out an entire disease that's carried by bugs. But on the other hand, anyone can have access to this. One thing that's advancing in genetic technology is that it's becoming cheaper, quicker, less materials needed. We're just becoming more efficient with it. And that's the scary part, because that means really anyone can do it. I read in one article named Animals, the Ethical and Moral Problems with Testing on Animals, and CRISPR's came up again, and it said that it can, the price can be as low as $30 for a kit that you can get, and that confirms what Jennifer said, that any high schooler with the right materials and means could do this, which means they could potentially put a disease in something that would carry it on purpose. And that, again, comes down to who has the technology and how far they're willing to go, because even though it is quicker and faster, we're still at a stage where it's not like overnight. They still have to research it and find the correct gene to edit. So there's the downside that anyone can access this and do what they please with it, but it would take them still quite a few resources. But again, some people are willing to go to those lengths. What if another country was in warfare with us? And the way our ecosystem works is bugs travel. It wouldn't just affect whatever they're planting in a certain society. It could travel outside of that. That's just the way our ecosystem works. And so it is a scary thought to think that someone could have access to that and do what they want with it, so long as they have the means. Some genetic predictions that I found in a book called in the chapter Genetic Predictions in this book, the theory versus data idea was a lot of the time in the past with our developments, it's been more theory of what we can do with genetics, and now it's becoming more database. People are using the materials more and more to create new technology. And so the original TED Talk that we watched in this class mentions how basically in the revolution we're at like a microwave. Like, it's not very technologically advanced as compared to where we could be in the near future. And so we are on a timeline of science. This stuff that seems kind of crazy to us isn't even the tip of the iceberg. And simplicity of the technology can be just as advanced as we use it. Microarray was something else that I discovered in my research. We can look at a lot of genes at once and analyze them. And so a practical use that I found for this was checking the effects of medication on DNA. So testing medication, which could then go into studying cancer. Like, if we're testing the effects of medication, how cancer is changing, that could be really useful for us. And so that technology is moving forward. A cure for cancer would be huge, and it feels like we've been searching for it forever. And that might have been how they felt about things like diseases that we've had in the past. And so maybe in the future, looking back, we'll be like, oh, cancer, that was like, it was just, we didn't have the technology yet, and now we do, and they could solve that problem. And which kind of leads into public concerns. And another source that I found, I quoted this part because I found it very true in every generation. There's this technology and it's in search for solutions. But this quote kind of said it like solutions in search of problems. And so the idea that this technology comes with its downsides, and definitely every time a new piece of technology comes out that's uncertain, and new meaning uncertain, is just that generation is very scared of it. And so later on, when new technology comes out, you have the older generations that are like, no, we don't need it. But the younger generations are really striving to protect that, because it's our future that's being used for medicines, healing, all types of practical uses that are protecting us in the future. And another concern is power and what is public domain, and sort of like the ownership and control monopoly over these products. And I think that is the biggest concern that I personally have is, what if this gets into the wrong hands? What if the government takes this and doesn't let us have it, but they like have a monopoly over it? Because I feel like that happens a lot now. The government seems to have this control over us that it's like it's for the better of the public, but is it? Because sometimes it almost seems worse than if they had just let us have it. I think the overarching question, what does this mean for our future, is it's so scary to look into the future and see, like, we don't know if we will have ownership over this technology, if we will have access to it, or if anyone who does have access to it will want to do bad things to us. And it really comes down to faith in humanity, and really fingers crossed that we can keep moving forward in a direction where we can cure cancer, we can cure mutations that are really harming society. I think that in the near future we could have technology where we don't have to struggle so much in with people dying of disease and dying. Maybe this technology becomes so accessible to the human domain, to the public domain, that countries that are struggling with diseases that we haven't had to struggle with in years could have just an instant fix for their problems.